I've spent most of my life pretending my dad's words couldn't bruise me, but that lie finally shattered 3 months ago. I'm 27, a high school English teacher, and the older of two kids. Dad, Mark, runs a mid-sized construction firm in our Ohio city and wears the effortless arrogance of a man who thinks he laid every brick with his bare hands. Mom left him 5 years ago after he accidentally called her stupid during a charity gala speech. My brother Eddie escaped to Seattle. I stayed because part of me clung to the idea that proximity might earn respect. In April, Dad was turning 60. The milestone landed on a Saturday, and against every sensible instinct, I decided to organize a surprise dinner. I found a modern Italian place downtown. White tablecloths, exposed beams, a pianist playing discreet jazz standards. I reserved the private mezzanine, ordered a custom tiramisu cake, and paid the non-refundable deposit out of my own limited savings. I even persuaded Eddie to fly back. The guest list was Dad's board members, a few golfing buddies, and two aunts I actually like. I justified the whole thing as emotional maintenance. Maybe a public celebration would mellow him. Maybe seeing his children fuss over him would make him realize we were worth more than his pride. The therapist I'd started seeing after Mom's divorce calls this compulsive peacekeeping. Whatever. I printed place cards anyway. Dad showed up in a navy blazer that probably cost more than my car. When the maitre d' led him to the mezzanine and everyone yelled, "Surprise!" he put on the politician's grin I knew too well. He hugged me, slapped Eddie's back, then launched straight into networking mode. My aunts got air kisses. I got a glass of Merlot shoved into my hand so he could regale his project manager with a story about union delays. Still, the evening ambled along smoothly for the first hour. The pianist shifted to bossa nova, and even Dad's laugh sounded almost human. Then the whiskey arrived. Dad never drinks neat spirits in moderation. He doesn't black out. He just peels off the mask that lets him function among civilized people. By his third double, I saw the old contempt flicker in his eyes like a match he couldn't resist striking. He heckled the pianist for playing elevator crap. He called Eddie Microsoft boy. He asked my aunt if her dress was supposed to look like upholstery or if that was just poor tailoring. I tried to intercept each barb with a joke, but every apology tasted like chalk. Dessert finally came. The server dimmed the lights, and everyone sang while the cake, 60 sparklers blazing, was carried in. I presented Dad with a fountain pen engraved with the coordinates of his childhood home, a thoughtful detail Eddie had suggested. He held it up, squinted, and said, "Why would anyone want to remember that dump?" The room froze. My lungs worked like broken bellows. Dad cleared his throat and clinked his glass. "All right, everyone, shut up a sec," he slurred. "I have a toast." He swayed, stared down at me, and smiled with zero warmth. "Biggest day of my life was when this one," he thumb-jerked at me, "popped out." Chuckles rippled. He winked. Not because I was proud. Because I realized instantly I'd made the worst mistake a man can make. Bringing a kid into a world that's already overcrowded with mediocrity. No one laughed. He kept going. 27 years of bills, drama, therapy. He actually air-quoted therapy. And the return on investment is a teacher's salary? Hell, I should have wrapped it up and tossed it in a sock. He drained the whiskey. Biggest regret of my life, folks. My ears rang. I counted every exhale. I looked at Eddie. His face was pale fury. Dad sucked in a breath like he might elaborate. I stepped forward, hand trembling but voice even. "You're done, Dad." He blinked. I turned to the stunned waiter near the stairs. "Please get building security. The mezzanine guests parted like oil from water, while a burly guard in a blazer jogged up. I gestured toward Dad, who was busy sucking tiramisu off his thumb. "This man is disturbing my private event. Remove him." The guard hesitated until Dad shouted, "Do you know who I am?" That ended the hesitation. They escorted him, stumbling and swearing, through tables of shocked Saturday diners. I followed only long enough to see him bounced onto the sidewalk like an empty keg. I went back upstairs shaking, expecting chaos. Instead, people stared at me with something bordering on gratitude. I raised my glass. "Let's salvage dessert." Nervous laughter broke the tension, and conversation resumed in cautious ripples. Eddie squeezed my shoulder. I tasted victory and ashes was mixed together. That was the first half of my revenge. The second half required planning. Dad's firm, Markham Builders, thrived on municipal contracts. Reputation mattered. For years, his board had tolerated his temper because profits were strong and scandals stayed private. His outburst gave me ammunition. Eddie, who heads a small cybersecurity team, recovered the restaurant's security footage with a polite request and a modest service fee. The mezzanine mic feed captured every syllable of Dad's speech in crisp HD. I drafted an email to the city procurement committee, attaching the clip and a concise summary of his harassment record. I didn't embellish. Reality was damning enough. Sexist remarks at the gala, a harassment settlement with a former intern, and now a public statement declaring his own daughter a waste of oxygen. I CC'd 3 local journalists on the city desk, the ethics officer at the State Contractors Board, and every sponsor of Habitat for Humanity's summer build, a project Dad's company headlined. Then I waited. The internet's half-life for outrage is short, but brutal. Within a day, a stitched TikTok recap of Dad's speech hit 2 million views. A body language expert duetted the clip, noting the micro smirk he flashed before delivering the punchline about overcrowded mediocrity. Twitter lawyers speculated about a class-action hostile work environment suit. Former interns piled on with screenshots of late-night texts, "You up?" and "Network with me at my hotel bar." I forwarded everything to Clara for the internal archive. Meanwhile, I kept my head down at school, but students are digital bloodhounds. On Thursday, my sophomore homeroom greeted me with silent, reverent stares. During lunch duty, one kid murmured, "Miss M, that's some legend tier boundary setting." I confiscated 3 phones broadcasting the audio and reminded them that cafeteria time was not TMZ Live. Privately, though, their respect felt like aloe on sunburn. Corporate sponsors reacted fastest. A regional bank yanked its logo from next month's charity golf invitational, leaving a literal gap on the promotional banner. Habitat's coordinator called me, not Dad, to apologize for any distress and promise new safeguards against VIP misconduct. The irony of being treated with courtesy because I'd exposed discourtesy made me laugh until I almost cried. Eddie, ever the strategist, suggested we document every retaliation attempt preemptively. He built a shared folder with encrypted backups of voicemails, emails, and even our phone location pings for alibi purposes. "Paper trail the size of the Appalachian," he said. "Bullies count on silence. Let's be noisy in the right places." I took a perverse comfort in that digital fortress. Amid the chaos, one unexpected message popped into my inbox. A resignation letter drafted by Dad's long-suffering executive assistant, Janice. She asked me to proofread it before she submitted it, ending with, "Thanks for finally turning on the lights." I corrected 2 commas and wished her luck. She accepted a severance package that financed her pastry chef training in Chicago. Local talk radio staged a call-in segment about toxic parents. Listening during my commute, I heard strangers debate whether I should have confronted Dad privately. A retired Marine said, "Public disrespect earns public consequences." I pulled over and ugly cried for 7 minutes. Not because I was sad, but because someone I'd never meet understood the calculus. Dad called me 8 times that week, alternating between threats and pleas. I let every call ring out. He switched to email. The subject lines swung from "you ungrateful brat" to "let's talk like adults." I archived each one into a folder labeled "Evidence Uncle for Lawyer" just in case. The fallout wasn't immediate bankruptcy, but it was blood loss in slow motion. Pending contracts froze. Banks reevaluated credit lines. Suppliers demanded cash on delivery. Clara described the office like a hospice ward staffed by auditors. Mom, meanwhile, sent me a single message. "Proud of you for protecting yourself. Dinner soon?" I accepted. She brought champagne and an indulgent grin. People ask if I felt guilty destroying my father's career. Here's the calculus. He blew up his own life. I merely circulated the debris pattern. Consequences aren't cruelty. 3 weeks after the leak, I arrived home from school to find Dad sitting on my apartment steps. His suit looked slept in, his eyes bloodshot. I considered walking right past him, but my neighbor's kid was riding her scooter nearby. I didn't want a scene. "I just want to talk," he said, palms up. I unlocked the door and stepped inside without inviting him. He followed anyway. My cat hissed and retreated. Dad stood in the living room surrounded by thrift store bookshelves, the antithesis of his leather-bound study. He scanned the space like it offended him. "You happy?" he asked. "You tanked my company." "I exposed your behavior," I corrected. "It was a private moment, for God's sake." I laughed once. "Public restaurant, 30 witnesses, audio system, that's not private." He exhaled through his nose. "Look, the board wants me gone permanently. They're offering a buyout. Peanuts compared to what the firm's worth. If I fight, the brand dies. If I take it, I'm out millions." "Sounds rough," I said. "But this isn't my problem." His jaw twitched. "I've been a bastard. I know that. But you're my daughter. You owe me a chance to fix this." "I owe you nothing." He tried a different tactic, lowering his voice. "The story's not over, honey. Those journalists knew where to dig because someone fed them. If I go down, I guarantee the mud will splatter. Your name's attached." "I'm already a teacher living paycheck to paycheck," I said. "What do you think you can take? My copy of To Kill a Mockingbird?" His shoulders sagged. For the first time since I was a kid, he looked small. "What do you want? Money? An apology?" "I want you gone," I said. "Out of my apartment, out of my life. Permanently. Sign the buyout. Donate half to the literacy charity you once mocked. Retire somewhere far away, and never contact me again. That's the only deal." He stared as though I'd spoken in static. Then he did something unexpected. He nodded. "Fine." He shuffled to the door, paused. "You really hate me that much?" "I don't have the energy to hate you," I said, "but I refuse to be your casualty." He left. I doubted he would follow through, but a month later, the local business journal reported his sale. 80% stake transferred to the remaining partners. A footnote mentioned a sizable anonymous donation to Books for All. Eddie and I clinked beers over a screenshot. Dad relocated to Florida, according to Mom's cousin. He married a Pilates instructor half his age and started a YouTube channel about entrepreneurial resilience. The algorithm buried it under cooking videos, and last time I checked, his subscriber count was 207. Mom, Eddie, and I filled the vacuum he left with something resembling peace. Thanksgiving that year was the first holiday dinner without a single passive-aggressive comment about portion sizes or career choices. Eddie taught Mom to play Settlers of Catan. She won by hoarding sheep. I graded essays in the corner, listening to them argue about longest road, and a strange warmth settled in my chest. Online, people debated my leak. Some called me brave. Others called me vindictive. Strangers always simplify what they don't have to live with. In February, my principal offered me the faculty advisor slot for the school newspaper. The previous advisor retired abruptly. Health issues, apparently. I accepted. Teen journalists are tornadoes of hormones and idealism. They remind me that truth, once printed, has weight. One afternoon, I stayed late, helping senior editor Maya compress an investigative piece about cafeteria suppliers. The janitor unlocked the computer lab and gestured to a FedEx box on my desk addressed to Ms. Markham. No return address. Inside lay the engraved fountain pen, polished. A post-it note said, "I kept the coordinates. You need them more than I do. Dad." No apology, no explanation, just a transfer of possession. I considered tossing it. Instead, I drove to the rundown bungalow whose coordinates matched. It was dusk. The house was boarded up, the yard overgrown. I stood on the cracked sidewalk, imagining Dad as a boy, maybe kicking a can, maybe already plotting how to escape poverty by stepping on necks. I uncapped the pen and wrote a single word on its velvet box: closure. Then I dropped it through the mail slot of a community literacy center 2 blocks away. They auctioned it at their spring fundraiser for $800, enough to stock an entire shelf with new children's books. Was that petty? Maybe. But revenge isn't only about destruction. Sometimes it's about repurposing wreckage into something useful. Life moved. Dad sent one more email the following year. A link to a press release announcing his motivational speaking tour. The subject line read, "See, Resilience." I archived it unread. Mom remarried a retired firefighter named Luis, who laughs with his entire body. Eddie proposed to his partner, Jamie, at a Mariners game. They asked me to officiate. I started saving for a down payment on a small house with a garden where my cat could stalk butterflies. On the day I closed on the house, I received a certified letter from Dad's lawyer. He'd updated his will, leaving me precisely $1 so no one can claim oversight. Eddie got the same token. The bulk of Dad's estate was earmarked for a foundation promoting entrepreneurship among underprivileged youth. Irony? Maybe. But maybe he was trying to scrub a stain he finally noticed. Either way, I shrugged. $1 was a cheap price for lasting freedom. I framed it, George Washington's face smirking at me, and hung it in my classroom beside a poster that says, "Speak truth to power." Students always ask about the dollar. I tell them it's proof that words cost, and silence costs more. Sometimes I wonder whether Dad feels any genuine remorse or if he's just adapted, like a cockroach surviving nuclear fallout. Then I remind myself that his internal landscape is irrelevant. The story matters because I own the ending. And the ending is this. My life is quieter, my circle smaller, and my boundaries fortified with stainless steel locks. I celebrate birthdays with people who would rather raise a glass than break one. I pay my bills, grade essays, and buy second-hand novels that smell like dust and possibility. I don't broadcast my father's downfall anymore. I don't need to. Consequences echo without amplification. If you're reading this on Reddit, maybe you're stuck under the weight of someone else's cruelty, wondering whether it's worth fighting back. Here's what I can tell you. Revenge isn't a magical cure, but it can be a scalpel. When wielded precisely, it cuts away the rot and lets healthy tissue breathe. It won't turn abusers into saints, but it will carve out space where their shadow can't reach. Just be prepared to live in the bright space afterward. Vindication is addictive. Don't let it define you. Use it, then move on. Plant something in the ground you cleared, watch it grow, and remember who did the digging. That's what I did. That's why I'm okay. I can still taste the Merlot from that night, remember the heat in my cheeks as security dragged my father into the street. Some part of me, the soft part that once hoped for approval, died on that mezzanine. I mourned her quietly and buried her deep. The woman who walked downstairs afterward wasn't a teacher seeking respect or a daughter craving love. She was a surgeon cauterizing a wound. It hurt like hell. Healing always does. But scars are better than open veins, and I've learned to wear mine like jewelry. So here's my final toast, Dad, wherever you're lecturing tonight. Thank you for clarifying my biggest regret. Spoiler alert, it isn't being born. It's wasting so many years waiting for you to be the father I deserved. Lucky for me, I fixed that. And that, Reddit, is the cleanest closure I know. Earned, simple, and razor-sharp in memory, forged on that night. Happy impossible birthday.